Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard, Nightmare Doll, Pale Moon standard deck profile for post Phantasmal Steed Restoration. One thing I didn't see coming with the new support for Pale Moon is that we would actually have a good amount of cards to make a playable Nightmare Doll deck, focusing on all of the units we have for standard format. One of the biggest ones, most embarrassed about, was obviously Nightmare Doll Alice. Completely spaced out when I was, thinking of the Nightmare Dolls when I opened the booster pack, but afterwards when I saw we had Nightmare Doll Alice, really, got me excited to think of all the different deck ideas you could do with Alice and the new Pale Moon unit we have, which is Nightmare Doll Carol, focusing all around the different workeroids we have for the deck, which we didn't really have too many, but we did have enough to make a working Pale Moon deck that focuses on the Nightmare Dolls and the workeroids. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the grade 3s, I run 4 Nightmare Doll Alice. One of your main cards. When placed on the Vanguard circle, you may call up to 1 workeroid from your soul to rear, and then this unit, that unit gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. So you want to have a good amount of workeroids to use in the deck just for this effect. It is very, very useful that Alice also has a Vanguard effect because it works very well with Carol and her own ability. And at the end of the battle that this card attacked, this is the rear guard effect, you can counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and put this card into your soul. Call up to 1 non-grade 3 card from your soul to rear. So just another usable card to get multiple attacks as well at the end of the battle that it attacked. So it doesn't even have to hit like the old Alice. You just have to rely on the fact that it'll have to attack. And then you have the counterblast and the soul blast to use with this card as well. And then obviously not being able to call out another Alice since it has to be a non-grade 3 unit from your soul to the rear. And then for the backup grade 3, I want to run 4 of the new Nightmare Doll Carols. Sadly, I was only able to pull the 1 Carol from the kit that I purchased and all the other booster packs and other trades. No one else had any Carols, but hopefully I'll definitely pick up some more. Another, I would say, main unit to go into along with Alice. You both have options with them, also being the Imaginary Gift Excel markers you can use for the deck. But with Nightmare Doll Carol, when placed, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, put up to 1 card from among them into the soul, and shuffle your deck. And if you put a grade 3 workeroid, you may call that card to rear. So obviously the main card you want to call out is your Nightmare Doll Alice, since you have the options then to call this card out to rear and then have her own effect on the rear guard to put her back into the soul. And on the Vanguard, when your grade 3 rear guard is put into your soul, counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, ride a workeroid from your soul as stand, and that unit gets drive -1 until end of turn. So you have the options to go into the Alice once it's put into the soul also, so just with its own effect. So very, very powerful skill, being able to then attack with the Nightmare Doll Carol and then have the options, to attack with Alice as well. And the fact that you can use front triggers just to make the attacks that more powerful. And it's not even like a risk with the hit for Alice, since Alice effect will go off regardless if the attack hits or not. You'll put it into the soul, get the other unit, and then also be able to ride Alice from Nightmare Doll Carol's effect onto your Vanguard, getting you another attack off. So very scary play to look at as well in the deck. If just for substitutions for now, I have the Miracle Pop Evas in here and also the 1 Dragon Tamer, Barking Dragon Tamer, but you really do want the 4 Nightmare Doll Carols. I don't see this card being too expensive. So once you get that set up, that'll be your main grade 3 lineup to go for. But like I said, it's a definitely deadly combo as well when you can get this combo off. And that's it for the grade 3s. When I move on to the grade 2s, one of the new ones we got in the latest pack is Nightmare Doll Ellen. With this one on rear, when it attacks, you counterblast 1, put one of your other workeroids on rear into your soul, and draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10,000 until end of battle. It just gives you some soul setup, but the draw power makes up for it as well. If you're fearful of your opponent, also, retiring your own rear guards, being able to put them into the soul, saves them, and just gives you more draw power to defend with your hand as well, but also powers up Nightmare Doll Ellen as well. It has to be a workeroid, but the majority of the cards we do run in the deck are workeroids, so you're not really limited aside from that with this card. So very, very useful at 4. It's definitely one of those grade 2 rear guards you want to have on rear very, very quickly as well. And anything you ride on Vanguard is obviously just potential to be called out from the soul later on in the game as well. And I also run 4 Nightmare Doll Rhonda. With this one, when placed on rear, this unit gets plus 2,000 until end of turn for each other Workroid on your Vanguard or rear, which will be a good number of cards, so potentially you can get this card up to a stronger amount. It's also one of the preferred cards I like to call out with your Nightmare Doll Alice onto the field, since obviously when you place it, you should have a good number of other cards out, so when it's just placed, it doesn't also specify when placed from the hand, so you'll be able to get those numbers when you call back out using Alice's skill, since it is a grade 2 and can meet those requirements out on the field as well. Very, very useful for that effect. But once again, like I said, if you have to ride this as a ride target, that's okay as well, because then you could just call it out from the soul once you ride your grade 3 on top of this card also. So just building up that soul for units to call out. And then lastly, for the grade 2s, I am running 3 Nitro Juggler. Now, one of the main reasons I like to run Nitro Juggler is for the fact that it is a Workroid, so it works very, very consistently with the Workroid effects in the deck. And on Vanguard or rear, when placed from hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, put 1 card from among them into your soul, and put 1 card from among them on the bottom of your deck. So you can set up more and more soul with this card. Also, it's a Vanguard or rear guard effect as well, so it's a potential Vanguard ride target. If you wanted to try out 4, you could try taking out 1 of the Nightmare Doll Rhodas, just for the fact you definitely want to keep 4 Ellen in the deck, since it's a definite consistent card for draw power. But that's only if you want the consistent, good Vanguard effect ride target as well with Nitro Juggler. Aside from that, you don't really need any more numbers than that for the grade 2 lineup. Or if you want another option to try out, you could try out Jumping Jill. I just like Nitro Juggler more for the setup. Jill has more of a power effect when placed, but like I said, you have the soul setup with Nitro Juggler. And that is it for the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s, I run 4 Nightmare Doll Edith. With this one, when placed, this unit gets plus 2,000 until end of turn for each other Workroid on your Vanguard or rear. So it's basically the exact same effect as Nightmare Doll Rhoda, aside from being a grade 1. It's also a good ride target since it is an 8K, being able to hit a lot of your opponent's units by itself as well, but also just having the option for this card to go into the soul as that ride target, then call it out. If you don't have the Nightmare Doll Rhoda on the field, you just have the options to call out Nightmare Doll Edith and then reach the same power units if you just want something that can at least hit against your opponent, since it can potentially still get the plus 10 if your other rear guards are full of Workroids and hit for 18,000 power by itself as well. So I like to run the 4 of this card as well, and also aside from the fact that it is a Workroid, you have those numbers as well. And then I also run 4 of the new Nightmare Doll Beverly. If we get more and more Pale Moon support, it might just give us more and more options for the Nightmare Dolls and the Workroids. But with Nightmare Doll Beverly, when your other Workroid is placed in the same column as this unit, that unit gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. So along with the power, as I said before, if you don't reach those numbers with Nightmare Doll Edith or Nightmare Doll Rhoda, if you have Nightmare Doll Beverly in the same column as it, you may already have boosted with this card. And if you do, you can still invest in a good power-up with this card for your other Nightmare Dolls for the fact that it gives plus 5,000 to that unit and not Beverly herself. So you can at least have the boost investment where your previous attack, like let's say you boosted with Nightmare Doll Beverly with your Nightmare Doll Alice, and then obviously in the same column you can then put Alice into the soul and then call out one of your other units, whether it be Nightmare Doll Edith or Nightmare Doll Rhoda, and then get the plus 5 along with their other boost from the card on the field behind, which is Nightmare Doll Beverly. So you have those options available to you with those cards. And I also have 4 of the Delude Dancer Ethel in the deck. This is the Sentinel, where it's the generic guard effect by discarding a card, but also when placed, draw a card, discard a card from your hand. Now, the only reason I have this in here is for the fact that I don't have the draw trigger Hades Hypnotist for the draw trigger spot for the Sentinel. If you did, you could put that card in instead, and then you would just change around a few numbers, which I'll say in just a second, of what to run. But it still has the option for the discard and draw to hand. Plus, this was in the latest booster set, Phantasmal Steed Restoration. So if you're looking for a more budget build of this deck to run, you can easily put this grade 1 in. If not, you can replace this card with Midnight Bunny. We don't really have that many other Workroid options for the grade 1 count, but Midnight Bunny still definitely does help for its own effects. Or even, Purple Trapezist, either of the two, depending on what you wanted to run for this final grade 1 spot. But to finish up the grade 1s, I am also running 2 starting presenter. On Vanguard or Rear, when placed from hand, you soul charge 1, and when wrote upon, put a card from your hand into the soul and soul charge 1, and you may call the soul charge card to rear. So it gives you more setup for the soul, being also a good grade 1 target. If you wanted to move around the spots as well, you could try, obviously when I said to take out the Sentinel grade 1s, putting in an additional 2 starting presenters just so you have a good grade 1 ride target, and then putting in 2 Midnight Bunnies instead to fill in the final spot with this card. But that's really just player preference down at that point, depending on what you want to use in the deck. And then for the grade 0s for your starter, I'm running Silverthorn Assistant Ionella, I believe, or Ionia. I believe it is Ionella because that has an L there. It's just the generic when wrote upon, draw a card effect for your cards. It is also a Workoroid, so you have that option to call it out from the soul to rear as well if need be to have an additional Workoroid on the field. And then for the trigger units, I decided to go for the Rainbow just to have a little consistency with pressure from the front triggers and also even more pressure from the criticals. So 4 Silverthorn Barking Dragon and 4 of the new Silverthorn Beast Tamer Surge for these cards. And then for the draw trigger spot, I have Rainbow Magician in the deck for now, but if you get the Hades Hypnotist, it'll just be the replacement method that I said before with the Midnight Bunnies and the starting presenters. And then lastly, I also run the 4 Candy Clown, being the heal trigger needed for the deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.